This week there's a new release of the backend, which includes all the fixes that were supposed to be in the previous hard fork. There's two new user interfaces, one that's just without stealth and one with stealth. So if you go to the release page on GitHub for BitShares, you should see all the latest releases. We have posted some build instructions to the wiki for how to build releases, so other people can build their own light wallets if they would like to build those. Overall, there are a ton of features in the latest release. Sorry, I had to bring up my notes. There's so many things.
I thought you cut off, so
I can't keep track of all the things. Proposed transactions are enabled in the new GUI. This allows you to submit a transaction to the network. It'll show up and you can either accept or reject the transaction. This will allow the multi-sig functionality, allow people to, it's basically workflow management for getting multiple signatures from multiple people without having to pass transactions around on disk, and just greatly simplified multi-sig. It should be the easiest multi-sig solution out there right now, and particularly easiest supported directly by the blockchain in every wallet. So check that out. The GUIs.
I just want to give some love from G-Check, and he said huge.
Yes, that's in the default wallet.
Is that, sorry to interrupt, that's also in the default web wallet then, as well as the light client?
Should be, yes. Now there's a whole slew of bug fixes as well. Probably about a dozen bug fixes and a dozen features in the GUI alone. So that's pretty exciting. There's a pre-release of the stealth GUI. We are still waiting on the Windows binaries for the stealth GUI beta. But that should be coming along. Our Valentine's Windows machine died, and so we're having a but that's part of the reason we put together the instructions, so that people like Block Trades, who actually do most of their development on Windows, can help us build and deploy Windows binaries. So check out the pre-release of Stealth. It's we're still going to be fixing things that we find, and once we have enough success with the beta UI, and we're confident that we can upgrade people's wallets, then we can move it into replacing the default UI with stealth functionality. All right, so Data Security Node has a question. On November 5th, will mark the end of the merger vesting period. What does this mean for BitShares' overall outlook in regards to dilution? Will it change from what it is today? And what is it today? All right, so on November 5th, it means everyone who's holding BitShares wants to hold BitShares. That they're no longer being locked into BitShares. So that's a good thing for the market. It means that people who have been investing and selling will be out, and that all new people will be in. So that's a really good sign. The other aspect of it, sorry, I'm thinking on my feet here.
It's okay. This gives us a perfect opportunity to say that data is saying hodl or hold.
Yeah, so more or less it means the end of selling from people who got stake in the merger who don't want to be with us. It means that the rate at which BitShares are entering circulation is going to be less. Overall, it's probably a positive sign. It's a reduction in potential sell pressure, and that's generally good for prices. Of course, I'm not going to speculate which way the price is going to go, because whatever I say will probably be wrong.
So you are saying that the markets are unpredictable?
I'm saying there are more factors at play than just the vesting ending. So I'd say it's probably cause to celebrate, but BitShares has been around for 2.5 years this November. That's
It's amazing.
a long time for everyone here to be together. We've accomplished a lot. So I'm really happy to see how things are maturing, how people are finding uses for the markets and BitShares.
Almost one of the oldest cryptocurrencies in existence right now, right? That is
At
still
least
alive.
one of the oldest in the top 10.
T-Bone asks, can you talk about the architecture of the beta wallet differs from the default wallet and the implications of that?
The architecture is more or less the same. The difference is how the wallet is stored. One of the biggest is that the account names are kept encrypted as well, so you can't actually see anything in your wallet until you unlock it. We've been trying to work around that by caching the account name so that you can continue to see it. It has all the server stored wallet and all the stuff we did there to try to make sure that your wallet goes to the server and it's backed up and it stays synchronized with the server and local copy. So basically the way we represent the wallet on disk has changed.
Are most of the updates finished?
So T-Bone asked, is there a risk of deleting wallet when you clear your browser cache? Absolutely. If you clear your browser cache, you would delete your wallet. So you should back up your wallet. Now with the new wallet, if it stores it on the server, then you should be fine. You'll be able to recover your wallet from the server, assuming you know your wallet code, which is provided to you via email. And that allows you to move your wallets to new computers with just the code.
Is that wallet code a 4-digit string?
Yeah, it's 4 or 5 digits, about, I think it's base 58 or something.
Okay, I've gotten that far with the Windows download of the Stealth pre-release, but I couldn't get it to. It asked for password, and when I put in the password that I used to create the wallet, it tells me that there's no such wallet.
I will ask James for the instructions on how that works.
Is there a set of written instructions somewhere?
I believe there was video instructions somewhere
Thank
that James posted. I'll track it down and make sure it's still accurate.
Thank you.
James says he'll track down the video and it's still accurate.
Bytemaster, isn't it true that with the light wallet, not talking about this newer version of the beta thing, but with regard to clearing your browser cache, if you've backed up your wallet and created a bin file and a key, then even if you clear your browser cache, you still haven't lost your wallet. You can recover that, correct?
Correct. And if you use the light wallet executable that you download, clearing your browser cache will not delete your wallet. It's only if you use OpenLedger or something within your browser.
I just wanted to clarify that some people might be a little bit concerned that clearing their browser cache would eliminate all traces of their wallet that they couldn't recover, but there is a recovery path if you've backed up.
Correct. Yeah, we need different names for the wallet. So let's figure out how we can refer to this. Ain't new and old and stealth and light and web. There's just too many different names out there. So perhaps we should have code names that help us identify things. Open Ledger, stealth wallet, light wallet. One of those. Something like that.
Speaking of which, have you seen the Maker's wallet?
Yeah, so the Maker team's put together a alternative to OpenLedger that has a stripped down interface. Changes the layout of some things. It's really nice. It's got all the same back end as the BitShares wallet, but it looked pretty nice. I created an account and looked at it and liked what I saw. So check it out. I think we need more people setting up services like them.
Yeah, Rune came on a while back and posted something about it. I think sometime this week. I was pumped to see it too. Because, I mean, if you guys recall, we've had these conversations over time, and Bytemaster has mentioned how we'll try to leave it up to third parties to come up with their own versions. And this was, it was cool to watch it. Sure. Ken Code is saying at Fuzzy, we need to talk about our plan for liquidity in the smoothies. BM's plans for this? Do you have any opinions on this? I know that the committee has talked about a lot of different possibilities as well. So Data might have input, or any of the other community members like Xerox who's here. Okay, this is becoming awkward.
Is everyone just reading the chat?
I was wondering how long it took the guys to create that stripped down wallet. Was it a difficult thing? I mean, one would think that removing features in code would be a lot less difficult than adding new features, but that would be a good idea to get a report from that project to see how difficult it was for them to come up on the learning curve to accomplish it.
I can say that we've done stripped down versions of the wallet for customers wanting private networks, and it takes about a week or less to strip out features and to boil it down. Now, they did a little bit more than just strip out features. They moved a little bit of the navigation around, but overall, it wasn't a significant amount of time, or shouldn't have been. I don't know how much time they actually spent on it. But for someone who's familiar with the code, it doesn't take much time at all. So your biggest challenge is getting familiar with the code. But there's that. So
that's almost always the case with any coding practice. You got to get familiar, especially if it's complex.
Yep. All right. So I think the biggest issue facing BitShares right now is the workers. The anti-dilution camp is gaining voting power. They're up to, I think, 130 million. Sorry, 143.7 million votes are voting for Alt, who is against all dilution. And then there's another 71 million. Basically, all the people who are voting against spending have really upped the bar, and they've pushed out the blockchain maintenance developer, which is BlockTrades. They've getting close to bumping out Xerox with his documentation and technical support. It seems like the one person that's safe right now is SVK, and I am very happy for that, because SVK is critical to getting most of these bug fixes and enhancements. SVK is been very productive, so I'd be very sad to lose him, but he's safe with a 6% lead. Sorry, only about 4% lead. So it's clear that funding has been cut off for the core team to do anything with BitShares right now. So we need to figure out a path forward to do that. So that's part of the reason I'm advocating that we stabilize the feature set, focus on bug fixes, and that's about the only thing we can do right now. So discussions of new features need to have a funding model that does not depend upon dilution. And I do think there's a lot of value to stabilizing BitShares. I think people are finding tons of things they can do with BitShares with the feature set that it already has. So I'd like some feedback on what people think about.
Well, there's
a
been
lot of stuff that
been quite a bit of talk on the forum about about the anti-dilution gang. Actually, pretty heated discussions at times, and the thing that's kind of puzzling is if they are gaining momentum and they've already had a significant impact on what happens in BitShares. So if their goal is to kill BitShares because they have if they have some other crypto coin in the works or some clone of BitShares that they want to bring up, if their goal is to kill us all together, should we do anything to stop them? Because if you say yes, we should, then you're going to probably come against a problem with you're going to change the rules and it will no longer be a decentralized thing if you do that. So it's kind of like if it needs to happen, it needs to happen if you want to stick by the rules and stay true to your guns, but it's self-preservation, so that kind of comes into it as well.
Yes, I do not want to change the rules. I think we learned that changing the rules has a dramatic impact on long-term confidence. So let's make one thing clear. I am not advocating anything regarding that. I'm simply trying to look at what the stakeholders want, figure out how to support them, and make sure that everyone understands that every share in BitShares that the developers have, they purchased or mined themselves, just like everyone else, with the exception of shares that they have earned for the work they've been doing through worker proposals. But even those shares were purchased with their time, which is valuable. So the expectation of free labor is, people are here for more than just money, more than just compensation. They want to see BitShares succeed. That's why we created BitShares. And so people, I'm sure, every single developer out there has been putting in time and contributions to BitShares that go above and beyond what their compensation says they should, right? They're going above and beyond. They're giving a lot to the BitShares community, just like all the volunteers that are here have given a lot to BitShares. But at the end of the day, the developers have to put food on the table and are economic actors and will act in their best interest. Now, it's clear that a lot of blockchains don't need paid workers, and they're able to survive and grow and even thrive. So I'm not going to say that the anti-dilution camp is wrong. It's just that as a community, we need to evolve and set our expectations and set our strategies based upon what the people who own BitShares want to happen. So
that's the problem right there. The exchanges don't own the BitShares, so they shouldn't be able to vote, in my opinion.
Technically, they own the BitShares because they borrowed them from their customers.
It's like a proxy.
It's kind of like a proxy, but you don't own the money in the bank. When you deposit money with the bank owes you money, but the money is theirs. The cash that you gave them is theirs. Likewise, when you send your BitShares to an exchange, the BitShares become property of the exchange, and you are a creditor to the exchange. And
I think the proxy analogy is perfect, though, because the people that put their money in voting for that, whatever that exchange wants to do with their voting with their shares, they make the choice. It's up to the individual investor as to whether they want to give that power to the I've seen lots of analogies about this. This is a perfect analogy.
Yeah, a proxy is a good way of looking at it, but I don't think it properly addresses the property rights involved. It's the same way that people view bank deposits as money that's theirs, and then when the bank fails, they are surprised to find out that they're just a creditor and at the bottom of the list. Exchanges are no different. You lend them your BitShares, they issue you IOUs, they allow you to trade the IOUs, but while they're in the exchange's hands, they're actually the exchange's property. In theory, the exchange could sell or leverage or do all kinds of stuff with the tokens you've given them. That's how fractional reserve stuff gets started. Generally, exchanges hold 100% reserve because they don't want to become insolvent if the price moves against them. But I think it's best to view it as the exchange's property when it's on the exchange. And if you don't if you don't want the exchange to enjoy the property rights that come with controlling your BitShares, then you should either trade on the BitShares exchange itself or move to a different exchange. So a proxy analogy is a good way of understanding it, but from a property rights perspective, I think we should understand that you're dealing in exchange IOUs, not BitShares anymore.
That's a good distinction. I hadn't thought of it from the contrary perspective, but you're absolutely right, Bytemaster. Once you give those shares once you deposit those shares, they are now in the control of and essentially owned by the exchange.
So that's pretty dangerous, though, if we have exchanges that have a lot of bit shares, but might see the decentralized exchange as a threat, right? I mean,
Well,
or
we need to
do you
attract.
think that this is not going to happen? Because I can understand why, we could say that we want exchanges to run our back end, but maybe they want to build their own solutions, or maybe they're already working with and partnered with other solutions. I mean, it's not like we're voting for Xerox, right?
Getting more people to trade on our internal exchange, I think, is, in my mind, is the only straight sort
Yeah.
of path that we can actually influence. Everything else is they're following the rules. I mean, they're not. If they weren't following the rules, they wouldn't be able to do what they're doing. So, we can kind of fret over it, or talk about the potential dangers, and there are. I mean, if these places all decided to go rogue, but that's not necessarily. I mean, yeah, we have UNB that's currently pointing their shares as a proxy, but attracting more people to trade on our exchange, being the center of people not wanting to go off exchange is what we need to focus on, and what do we need to put together in order to make that happen.
Well, we need them to help us fund a great UI, but if the proxies who are currently in existence think that that's a bad idea for us to have a great UI that funnels people away from them, then
Well, we're not. I mean, we're talking about funding things through dilution, and I think that ship has kind of sailed. Unless we have a mass exodus of the anti-dilution crowd, unless they decide, they've got something better and they're gonna walk away. It seems to me that they're holding on to BitShares sort of at the same time as they're cursing it, but that's their own business, and there's nothing we can really do about it. So we spent a lot of time kind of trying to attack this problem, I think, from the wrong angle. So what can we do, in order to bring people on? I want to give a real shameless plug here. If anyone goes to news.blockchainbunker.com, I just put up an article about sidechains, and one of the things that I discussed, one of the interesting ideas, and I actually borrowed this a little bit from Xerox. So Xerox, I want to give you credit for this. Is the notion of being able to use sidechain, the sidechain oracles or the trustees who operate a multi-sig account as a service for exchanges, so that essentially we could become a central bank of sorts to exchanges, where exchanges could essentially prove their reserves by using the BitShare sidechain setup, and plugging into that system. So I go read the article if you're interested in something like that. I think I outlined it pretty clearly. Xerox, I think, would be another person to talk to, because he's got a lot better understanding of the sort of nuts and bolts of it that I do. But anyway, that was just one idea that I saw recently that that I thought would be, an interesting way to sort of incentivize exchanges to work with us rather than against us. And I think the sidechain thing is
that's
such
a beautiful idea.
Yeah, so there's other things, obviously. I mean, but and how to fund these things? Well, we've got to be able to just let go of this funding through dilution thing. I think we've got to put it out of our minds. It's not going to happen. It's really unfortunate that they're even firing the people who are doing bug fixes and things like that. I mean, that's sort of skirting
It's
on
dangerous.
irresponsibility. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I think so too. That's where it seems malicious when they start doing that kind of thing.
But again, I mean, unless we do anything, something totally drastic and change the rules, like, it is what it is. So, we've got to
Let me
be
ask
creative.
a question though. Like, if BitShares, because of this, and because we just let it be, if it goes down, at what point do we stop saying, let's just let it be? At what point do we say, okay, this is really causing damage and we have to have something set up for that? I mean, yeah, the nuclear reactor probably 99.9% of the time won't blow up, but we have to have that in case that it does happen.
That's what I was alluding to earlier.
Well, let's analyze this. What happens if people stop trying to get worker proposals and we stop discussing potential things to fund? The result is no one is going to vote because people are going to assume it's impossible to get support for it. At the end of the day, the long-term effect of establishing a status quo where the refund workers have a lot of votes and no other workers can possibly get in is that it almost takes a revolution to actually get a worker in, which means workers won't try, which means we stop discussing the potential for it, which means we might as well remove the feature from the blockchain after a while. It's sort of there as something that is technically possible, but politically impossible. So I think that's going to be the ultimate outcome, is in the event that they win, now maybe perspectives will change when the market cap is on the order of Bitcoins, then they might not mind voting for funding some things. It might completely change things. On the other hand, when things are working, people don't want to change anything for fear of breaking things. So if we got to a Bitcoin market cap with outpaying any workers, then people are going to make the argument we didn't need them. We still don't need them. And at which point workers will not even be a possibility until a competitor comes along that threatens any lead that we manage to get without dilution. I think it'll be very, very interesting, but it seems like this has been an educational experiment in crypto land. We got to see what would happen. BitShares had a large camp of people that supported the concept, but it was clearly divided. We'll see what happens.
I wonder what's so different from the delegated proof of stake 1.0, where we seemed to have the opposite problem. Does anybody have any thoughts on this? Because to be honest with you, it kind of turns gears in my head and doesn't feel comfortable.
We have proxy voting in 2.0. It's easier. I think there's more consolidation of that sort of influence there. That does, I think that does play in. Well, especially now that Unity has been able to. No, we didn't have proxy voting in 1.0.
That is correct. We in 1.0 you had to update your balance in order to change your vote. Now you can point your balance once, and your vote can change to whoever your proxy is. They can change it anytime they want. That makes voting more fluid. It allows people to. It actually makes the network a little bit more secure in my mind because people are more consciously voting. The downside is it does allow the exchanges to set a proxy. Exchanges are not going to update their votes manually each and every time they want to change. So proxy voting enabled exchanges to vote. But I wouldn't necessarily say that that in and of itself is bad, because proxy voting has also given me a lot more power to vote, because people proxy to me and I can vote, which means that those votes get updated and coordinated faster. It allows Z-Rock to express his votes. So it cuts both ways. I don't think we should blame that particular feature, but that is a difference.
Well, and there seems to be some difference in terms of when you were talking about at a larger market cap, it might not be a big difference. It might not be a big problem, rather, right? But
well,
the
official stance of the Chinese, or at least the people who have spoken up, is they don't mind dilution, just not at these low market caps.
But that's the kind of the ironic thing, though, because that's the time when we need it the most.
Yes, it's the time when we need to reward people for investment, and we need to raise capital and grow. But
sure, yeah. I mean, just trying to think about this, because I understand that we're not, it's a problem that I don't think that we should say, that this is the end of it, I think we should definitely consider what might happen if the worst case scenario occurs, and God forbid that happens, but what do we do in that case?
All we need to do is focus on building businesses on the platform, and the platform has been, especially now the latest hard fork with the stealth stuff in place, we've got almost all the features we need for a long time. BitShares is not struggling for lack of features. It's struggling for getting users, finding market fit. It's it's solving a problem that people need to understand how it benefits them. I guess I was reading something about someone who invents a screw. It's the best screw out there, but you can't sell any because no hardware store will include your screw. Consumers don't study it, so they don't learn how your screw is better than all the other screws. What you need to do is find another product that needs your screw, that people immediately understand the benefit of, and start using it. So someone invents a bookshelf that can only be, people like the bookshelf, and it's only made possible because of your super strong and efficient screws. People buy the bookshelf and you sell millions of screws. Because stop saying screw.
I'm actually glad you are.
I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just thinking about the story. That's funny. All right. So, bottom line is,
go get screws.
Is infrastructure. It's infrastructure that most people don't know they need, and we need to find the service that builds on the infrastructure and sell that, and then BitShares will benefit. Which means that all the people that are speculating and want to invest and spend their time and money should be focusing on how to build bookshelves, not infrastructure. And there's profit to be made in building and selling a bookshelf that then indirectly benefits BitShares. And if we view that approach, then what we should get together and talk about here is what things can be built on BitShares today without modifying BitShares, and what kind of business models they can have that can allow them to make money, and how that will benefit BitShares.
Well, before that, real quick, can I ask you where we stand today? Or let's say we get the stable feature set. Does the blockchain still need somebody working on maintaining it? I'm assuming they do. And if that's not being done, then how many businesses are going to feel comfortable building on top of it?
Well,
That's a great idea, Crypto.
businesses feel
Dash
comfortable
that.
building on open source because they know if there's any problems with it, that they can fix it. The core protocol, businesses don't need the wallet that we put together, right? And most of the bugs and user-facing issues are in the wallet. The protocol, businesses can build on just fine. It's not like there are a lot of bugs at the protocol level at this point in the game.
I'm wondering if someone could run a political campaign by sending either just one BitShare or a user-issued asset to all potential voters with a memo in both English and Chinese in it.
Take all accounts with over a minimum balance and do that. I guess it depends on whether or not people look at their wallets. There are a lot of people, I've been surprised, that come to the forum and say, hey, I've got an old ProtoShares wallet. How do I get into BitShares 2.0? Those people buy a long time ago and then they don't look at it. So
maybe not.
I can say that I get a lot of spam in my own wallet. People sending me token amounts of their toy currencies. I end up having to hide it all so it doesn't clutter my wallet and whatnot. But I appreciate the gestures.
Definitely. And these are the types of things that make people want to build something onto BitShares, because it starts with them just playing around, some of them. And once they start playing around, they might want to create their own token. If they create their own token, they start envisioning how they bring value to it. And it starts making them think that it's possible to, build with this.
I think the problem might be even more serious than what we've discussed so far, because there's a persistent rumor that I think has some credibility to it, that there's a group that is preparing a fork, and in that case they might do everything they can do to get rid of the main chain once they're ready to fork.
Outright attack.
I haven't heard that, but I don't think it's worth speculating on an outright attack at this point in the game. I don't think it makes sense. It makes more sense for someone to sell than to try to vote down. It's just cheaper to sell and then buy into your fork. So I don't see anyone who's doing long-term holdings having a malicious intent. It's entirely too costly. If you look at the people who have 140 million, I guess 200 million or so BitShares, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's almost $1 million or more. So you could do a lot with $1 million to bootstrap a fork if you could liquidate it.
So, I mean, what's keeping us from reaching out to whoever's voting for alt and trying to lobby them?
I'd rather, we've been talking about this every Mumble session for a couple months now. There's a clear trend in which way things are going. I don't think we can say anything that's going to change their mind at this point. What we should do is focus on what we can do and what we are going to do to make things better for BitShares. So there's lots of things going on behind the scenes of people that are working to get assets listed on BitShares, new things being traded on BitShares. Open Ledger's will be adding a new token here in the next week or two. So there's lots of things that are going on. And all these things will benefit BitShares. We should focus on cryptocurrency in general. I think the side chains effort is where a lot of innovation can go. If we can come up with a viable side chain solution, then we have a way of creating a broader community, a community that's not bent on having everyone on one blockchain, but is fully supportive of making all blockchains interoperable. And that's a very powerful concept. So anything that we can do to support side chains will be huge.
Yeah, we've been talking about this, and there are some people who are working about it, I believe, in the background, but I don't want to say anything unless they're going to say anything. But I'm pretty sure, I've been told by some people that side chains are going to become a big thing and already are in the works. So that's definitely a beneficial thing. And I think that it's cool that these various chains could potentially have their own governance as well. And that could be something that we could look into in the future. But a sort of republic of chains, I guess.
Confederation.
Well, the other thing that's kind of been on my mind lately, and this is only because of other projects that I am aware of as well, is the idea that having additional graphene-based chains that have additional features that can sort of showcase what graphene is capable of doing, I think is going to go a long way towards bringing more attention and awareness to BitShares itself ultimately. So that that's something that's in the works and from many different places, and hopefully in the coming year at the very most, we'll have a couple more examples of graphene chains that can do things that have bells and whistles that BitShares isn't, particularly that genre, and there's so many different things that can be done with graphene that isn't just a decentralized exchange, so but
Definitely, man.
Ultimately adding all those features to BitShares is kind of not at this stage. I think people are starting to realize, hey, this is all open source, and yeah, it costs some money and takes some knowledge to be able to spin up one of these chains, but somebody's going to start doing it eventually here, and we can't sort of view all of those as hostile takeovers. We've got to think that, it's innovation, and it's people coming out and doing things that for whatever reason, the BitShares community isn't particularly inclined towards. So I think
and
that's all.
Validating the protocol.
Yeah, totally. Once you start having, copycats everywhere that are using your stuff, then, it's like, oh, hey, yeah, that's
People want to copy.
That's because it works, so.
I can say that when it comes to building blockchain applications, anyone who's learned graphene knows that it is a joy to work with. You can build things very quickly things that would be incredibly difficult to build with any other blockchain framework. Even things that people do with JavaScript, right? There's some blockchains out there that the entire things implemented in JavaScript. There's a lot of aspects to blockchains that are not necessarily obvious at first. One of the critical aspects is the ability to maintain a history and undo buffer so that the blockchain can be reorganized, so that you can apply transactions and whatnot. The other thing is the ability to have database indexes with indexing on multiple fields, multiple types, and to be able to do all that stuff efficiently. Graphene has some major advantages in its structure that is hard to replicate. The JavaScript libraries, I haven't found a JavaScript library that's able to do what the core database part that powers graphene does. So if you haven't studied graphene, you should look into it. It's incredibly easy to create new blockchains off of the graphene base. Yeah. Anyway, we're about 1 hour now. I think it's
real quick. I hate to I hate to throw you in here, but FA asked a question. I'm just going to grab it real quick. He said, Xerox mentioned in order to move toward the core features, he said the process is 1, write a quick BSIP to propose a new version number, e.g. 2.1 and a code name. 2, create a worker or let the committee create one with 0 pay. 3, let shareholders vote for it. Will CNX create one?
I think any committee member can create one. Keep in mind that workers should only be created, there's a fee associated with creating them. So saying 0 pay is not quite right. There should be enough pay that if it gets voted, it gets paid back, which means that the only things that should be submitted for worker proposals are things that the submitter is willing to risk not getting paid back on if it fails. So check that out. One way that you can do, because we have the proxies and we have the committee members, you can do a quick poll of just those people and find out whether or not something's going to pass without having to put it up to a vote. A blockchain level vote sort of absolutely ratifies it in a cryptographically provable historic record that can never be manipulated kind of way. But I guess the way I would tend to see it is create a poll or a thread and have each witness or each proxy and each committee member express their opinion, and we can manually tally up whether or not something passes. And we can do that a lot more efficiently. If it doesn't require any changes to the blockchain or allocation in coins, then that's the case. One other thing to throw out there this week is social media management is being handed over to a team in the committee. So Fuzzy, Data Security Node, and the I think Johnny Bitcoin are going to take over the social media for BitShares going forward. If anyone has any feedback for them, this would be a good time to express.
Well, I do have one thing if no one else has something, but please go ahead.
What I was going to ask is in the same thread where that was discussed, it was also suggested that control of the BitShares.org site be changed as well. Has that been considered?
I would be happy to hand over control of BitShares.org to the committee or someone who wants to take on that responsibility. Right now, it's just GitHub repo that's publishing a Jekyll website. So we can add a couple people to have permission to commit, and they can change the website at will. They can't really do any long-term damage because it's GitHub, it's all version controlled, so it's very easy to go back and fix it if they break something. And it's all the servers are hosted by GitHub, so you don't have any server costs or server downtime. So I think that'd be a great way to handle it, is to allow the people who are on the committee to have write permission to the GitHub repo.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been some discussion about things that can be changed on the main page of BitShares.org, and because what's there now is it seems kind of old. I remember a lot of those graphics and things came out when the announcement was made back last June, almost a year ago. So, but it's a matter of manpower and whether or not people want to step up to do it. I just want to make sure that it was okay with CNX, that type of thing would be possible, and sounds like you've given the green light to it if people will be willing to step up to do it.
Yeah, I want to make it clear that Cryptonomex is not in control of BitShares. We let BitShares use our graphene libraries freely, and let the whole world use it freely. We ported BitShares to it, but at the end of the day, BitShares is not Cryptonomex's. We are just a team member. We produced the code, we produced a lot of the ideas, but ultimately, BitShares is going to go its own direction. We do not have unilateral ability to steer it, as we've been discussing with voting power. So I think what makes BitShares special, in my mind, is how decentralized it is. A lot of people think it's centralized, but power is not absolute, and it's getting more and more decentralized each and every day. It's self-governing, and how that governance ends up steering this thing is going to be fun to watch. So the more governance and the more decentralized, the more stable it becomes, because it's hard to move people. It's hard to move stakeholders to change things, and stability is something that people look for. People want to know that stuff isn't just going to be changed out from underneath them. So I think the less Cryptonomex is associated with being in charge of BitShares, the more decentralized and self-governed BitShares will become, and that will only be good for BitShares.
Yeah, and that could be something that the anti-dilution camp is thinking too.
Right. There's a lot of smart people out there, and we shouldn't, we should allow the potential that we could be wrong, and recognize that we could be wrong. Even if you're sure you're right.
Because that's never happened before.
Yes, I've never been wrong before.
None of us have.
But yeah, so I would say that we'll see where this goes. I like the fact that the social media and I think the website should be controlled by the same people that control the social media. Social media is an extension of the website. It's our web presence. It's the public face. It's the
Yes.
messaging of BitShares. So it would seem counterintuitive to have social media saying one thing and the website saying something else. So
Exactly. That's where the centralization, as far as those services are concerned, makes sense.
But there also needs to be a way to modify or change or add to the people who control the social media website over time.
Yeah.
all right, so we need one person
quick.
to. I think what the ideal thing would be to put the domain name into a trust of some kind, who points it at GitHub, and then let the community manage permissions to edit the site on GitHub. And that would be, you need someone who has authority over the domain name, but by making them a trustee of sorts, holding it for the benefit of the BitShares community. That's very different than making them the owner. They have specific instructions in what they can and cannot do with the domain name. So I think that would be a great approach to do it. Now, right now, I think Cass is technically the one who's in control of the domain name. But Cryptonomex owns it.
To conference room.
I think a
Sorry about
multi-sig
that.
approach would be a good idea.
It's also those social media because there's going to be competing business interests. So if there's an entrenched control of the social media by someone who has a business interest, then the competing business interests are going to lose out. So there has to be a way to add to or modify the control of the social media over time.
I think we can arrange for that to say that with just some bylaws of agreements that whoever the BitShare stakeholders elect to the committee, they get to vote on and nominate the people to manage the social media. And you only pick people who are willing to cooperate with handing over to their successors. I guess that's the biggest challenge, is what do you do if someone decides that I'm in control now, I don't care, I'm not going to give it up even though there's a vote. And there's no easy answer there. I do know that with GitHub, if you're an owner, owners can't kick other owners off. They can only voluntarily leave themselves. And that can create a problem if someone doesn't want to leave. But I think that with careful vetting of the people who get put in charge and only electing honest people who have the intention and sign a document stating that they'll follow the wishes of the BitShares stakeholders, they're basically taking on the role of trustee, then it can be worked out. But I think that would be, I think there's some potential there. It would probably be best to have some kind of benevolent owner whose only job is to make sure that control transfers properly, and they don't actually edit the website or social media, but they have the ability to add or remove people who do edit it. So that would be like one person who owns the GitHub repository, and they control the permissions of who has commit access. That would probably be better because that person's role is very restricted. They're not trying to control the content. They're just trying to be the referee. And I think that's something we can have. There's lots of people in the community who are trustworthy with that type of role.
Can I bring up one final thing? This is off topic, but you spoke a little bit with Oleg this week of Emmercoin, and both of you seem to have an interesting discussion. Is there anything that you guys talked about tech-wise that was interesting to you?
The tech that they're working on is really bridging the blockchain to a bunch of existing protocols: SSH, Open SSL, LDAP. All great innovations, all things that BitShares could be bridged to. BitShares has the ability to publish public keys, to manage those registries, its ability to do DNS, and so on and so forth. He's working on some really great things, and they got a blockchain based off of Peercoin, from my understanding, that tracks all those permissions. Integrating the blockchain with existing infrastructure is potentially huge. They allow you to manage permissions on accounts and SSH keys in a decentralized manner. I really like the half dozen different use cases that they had on there. It'd be great if someone could look at their code and figure out how to add similar bridging capabilities to use the BitShares network. BitShares wouldn't have to change at all to support this, and it would give businesses an alternative, make it easier for them to manage their permissions.
Well, thank you for your input. I was wishing I could be a fly on the wall in there, but unfortunately my Skype was messing up, so I figured this was a good time to ask. Thank you everybody for showing up. Thank you, Bytemaster, for showing up and giving your opinions and thoughts. Thanks, Crypto Prometheus, for giving your opinions and thoughts. Once upon a time, Tom. Many of you didn't speak up in terms of using a microphone, but you did participate in the discussion. So thank you for everybody participating. Do not forget to sign our guest book. Just to let you know, this is something that is here to kind of keep the history of all of us who've joined up and continue coming here on a week-by-week basis. So thank you, all of you, for being part of this.